Step away from the vehicle, now. You don't look like you belong here.
That's my name on the sign, officer. I just worked 18 hours saving lives.
I don't care what you say you are. Drop the keys. Hands on the hood.
Am I being detained for a crime or just for being black in my own parking spot?
Last warning, don't make this worse.
You already did.
The high-definition security camera mounted on the northwest corner of St. Jude's Medical Center caught the entire sequence in crystal-clear 4K resolution. It was a crisp, bright Tuesday morning, the sun just beginning to burn off the dew on the manicured hedges lining the physician's lot. And Officer Kyle Miller, 29 years old and brimming with the confidence of a man who had never been told no, had absolutely no idea that the woman he was stalking across the asphalt was the only reason the mayor's son was still alive after a motorcycle crash 3 months prior. The woman walking toward the silver BMW 7 Series was Dr. Elena Harper. She moved with a slow, deliberate gait, the kind born of bone-deep exhaustion. At 58 years old, Elena was an institution within the city's medical community. She was the director of emergency medicine, a double-board certified trauma surgeon who had just completed a brutal 18-hour shift. She had spent the night pulling bullets out of chests, setting compound fractures, and holding the hands of dying men. Her scrubs, a deep navy blue, were wrinkled but clean. Her white coat draped over her arm, her hospital badge swinging rhythmically from a lanyard around her neck. She wasn't thinking about crime. She wasn't thinking about the police. She was thinking about a hot bath, a glass of Chardonnay, and the silence of her empty house. She reached into her pocket, her fingers brushing against the cool metal of her key fob. Before we get into the details of this infuriating encounter, I need you to take a second. Look at the subscribe button. If you believe that respect should be earned by character and not just a badge, go ahead and click it. And drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever been judged solely on how you look? I want to know your story. Because what happened to Dr. Harper happens far too often, and usually there aren't cameras rolling. Officer Miller was on a proactive patrol. That's what his sergeant called it. In reality, Miller was bored. He had transferred to this district 4 months ago looking for more action than his previous suburban post offered. He saw a black woman in loose-fitting clothes walking among Porsches, Teslas, and Mercedes Benzes. To his mind, conditioned by biases he would vehemently deny having, she didn't fit. She didn't look like the doctors he saw on TV. She looked like help, or worse, an opportunist looking for an unlocked door. He didn't see the stethoscope peeking out of her pocket. He didn't see the director of medicine embroidery on the white coat she carried. He only saw skin color and a luxury car. He tapped the steering wheel of his cruiser, swung the vehicle around, and hit the lights just a quick flash enough to startle. Dr. Harper paused. She didn't run. She didn't flinch. She simply turned her head, her eyes narrowing behind her prescription glasses. She saw the cruiser approaching, cutting diagonally across the empty parking lanes to intercept her. She assumed there was an emergency. Perhaps an accident nearby or a shooting victim being brought in, and the officer needed directions to the ambulance bay. She waited. Miller rolled his window down as he pulled up alongside her, blocking her path to the driver's side door of the BMW. He didn't offer a greeting. He didn't ask if she worked there. He leaned out his arm, resting on the doorframe, chewing a piece of gum with an irritating rhythmic smack. "Morning," Miller said, though his tone suggested anything but a greeting. "You want to tell me what you're doing in this lot? This is restricted personnel parking." Elena blinked. The fatigue in her brain made the question process slowly. She looked at the sign directly in front of her bumper. It read in bold red letters, "Reserved. Dr. E. Harper, ER Director, Tau Away Zone." "I'm going home, officer," Elena said, her voice raspy from hours of shouting orders in the trauma bay. She gestured slightly with her keys. "It's been a very long night." "Is that right?" Miller's eyes scanned her up and down. "And this is your car?" "It is. Kind of a nice ride for a—" He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the cool morning air. You got ID. Elena sighed. It was a heavy, weary sound. Officer, my identification is my hospital badge, which is right here on my chest. My car is parked in the spot with my name on it. If you look at the sign... I didn't ask for a tour of the signage, ma'am. Miller interrupted, his voice hardening. I asked for identification, driver's license, now. Elena felt the first prickle of adrenaline cut through her exhaustion. She knew the law. She knew that in this state she was not required to provide identification unless she was being detained for a suspected crime. Am I being detained? She asked quietly. Miller's face flushed. He opened his car door and stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a hand resting instinctively near his belt. I'm investigating a potential vehicle theft. So yes, you're detained until I figure out who you are and why you're trying to get into a car that clearly costs more than you make in a year. The audacity of the statement hung in the air like a foul odor. Costs more than you make in a year. Dr. Elena Harper made upwards of $600,000 annually, not including her consulting fees for the state medical board. She had paid cash for the BMW, but she knew that telling him her salary wouldn't de-escalate the situation. It would only bruise his fragile ego further. Officer, Elena said, keeping her hands visible, her voice dropping to that controlled, icy tone she used when a resident made a life-threatening error. My name is Dr. Elena Harper. I am the Director of Emergency Medicine at this hospital. I am standing next to my vehicle in my assigned spot. I am tired, and I would like to go home. Miller stepped closer, invading her personal space. He was close enough that she could smell the stale coffee on his breath. Step away from the vehicle, he commanded. Put your hands where I can see them. My hands are visible, she replied, holding them out. She was holding her keys in her right hand and her folded white coat in her left. Drop the keys. Put the coat on the hood. I am not going to put my clean coat on a dirty hood, and I am not dropping my keys. You have no reasonable suspicion to stop me. You are profiling me. I said, drop the keys, Miller shouted. His hand moved to his radio. Dispatch, I've got a non-compliant female, possible 10 to 16 in the north lot. Elena shook her head slowly. You are making a mistake. A very expensive mistake. Don't threaten me, Miller snapped. You think because you bought some scrubs at a thrift store you can just walk in here? I know the staff here. I know Dr. Harris. I know Dr. Levinson. I've never seen you. That is because Dr. Harris and Dr. Levinson are cardiologists who work 9 to 5, Elena said, her patience fraying. I work the trauma pit. I work overnight. Now, if you are done harassing me, I am going to get in my car. She made a move to turn toward the door handle. It was a simple movement, non-threatening, just a woman turning to enter her property. Do not move. Miller lunged forward, positioning himself physically between her and the car door. His hand went to the taser on his belt, unholstering it but not pointing it yet. You are interfering with a police investigation. There is no investigation. Elena's voice rose for the first time, echoing off the concrete walls of the hospital wing. There is no crime. Look at the badge. She lifted the lanyard. It had her photo, her name, her title. It even had a holographic seal of the medical center. Miller glanced at it but didn't actually read it. He had already decided she was a fake. In his mind, the narrative was set she was a clever thief using a disguise. Anyone can print a badge at Kinko's, he sneered. Turn around. Hands behind your back. I am not turning around, Elena said, planting her feet. I have rights. You have not articulated a crime. You have not validated a suspicion. You are harassing a senior medical official on private property. By now, the commotion had drawn attention. 2 nurses who had just finished their shift were walking toward their cars, 3 rows over. They stopped watching the scene unfold. A maintenance worker pushing a cart of supplies froze near the entrance. Ma'am, this is your last warning, Miller said, his voice vibrating with adrenaline. He was enjoying this on some sick level. The power, the control. He felt he was catching a big fish. "Call your supervisor," Elena demanded. "Right now, get a sergeant down here." "I don't need a supervisor to handle a suspect," Miller retorted. "I need you to comply." "I am not a suspect. I am a doctor." "Start acting like one then and follow orders." "Following unlawful orders is not the behavior of a citizen," Elena countered. "It is the behavior of a subject. And I am not your subject." The standoff was absolute. On one side, nearly 4 decades of education, discipline, and life-saving service. On the other, a badge, a gun, and a profound ignorance of the law. Miller felt the eyes of the bystanders. He felt his authority being challenged in public. He couldn't walk away now. If he walked away, he lost. And men like Officer Kyle Miller did not know how to lose with grace. He holstered the taser and reached for his handcuffs. "That's it. You're under arrest." "For what?" Elena demanded, taking a step back. "Failure to obey a lawful order, resisting arrest." "Disorderly conduct. There is nothing lawful about your order. Turn around." Miller didn't wait for compliance. He grabbed Dr. Harper's left wrist. His grip was hard, unnecessarily violent. He wasn't securing a dangerous criminal. He was punishing a woman who had dared to speak back to him. "Get your hands off me!" Elena shouted, struggling instinctively. She wasn't fighting him. She was pulling away from pain. "I have a rotator cuff injury. Do not pull my arm." "Stop resisting." Miller screamed the magic words that justified everything in his mind. He spun her around, slamming her chest first against the hood of her silver BMW. The impact knocked the wind out of her. Her glasses slid down her nose. Her white coat fell to the oily asphalt. The sound of metal on metal rang out as he wrenched her arms behind her back. Elena gasped in pain as her shoulder, surgically repaired 2 years ago, was twisted beyond its limit. "You are hurting me," she cried out. "You should have thought of that before you acted like a thug." Miller grunted, clicking the first cuff onto her wrist. The scene in the parking lot had shifted from a quiet morning disagreement to a public spectacle. The sun was fully up now, casting long, harsh shadows across the pavement. Dr. Elena Harper's face was pressed against the hot metal of her car hood, the grit of the road digging into her cheek. She could feel the cold steel of the handcuffs biting into the soft tissue of her wrists, tightening with every micro-movement she made. "I can't breathe," Elena gasped, turning her head to the side to get air. "You're pressing on my diaphragm." "If you can talk, you can breathe." Officer Miller recited a line he had heard in movies rather than one taught in the academy. He leaned his weight into her back, pinning her down. He was breathing hard, the adrenaline dump making his hands shake slightly as he double-locked the cuffs. From the sidewalk, the 2 nurses who had been watching were now running toward them. One of them was Brenda, a charge nurse who had worked with Dr. Harper for 15 years. She was a formidable woman in her own right, wearing a bright pink cardigan over her scrubs. "Hey! Hey! What the hell are you doing?" Brenda screamed, waving her arms. "Get off her!" Miller whipped his head around his hand, instinctively dropping to his pepper spray canister. Back up right now, or you're next." "That is Dr. Harper," Brenda yelled, ignoring the threat. She stopped about 10 feet away, pulling out her cell phone and hitting record. "That is the medical director. You are arresting the head of this hospital." "She's a suspect in a grand theft auto investigation," Miller shouted back, his voice cracking slightly. He was committed now. There was no turning back, even if a small voice in the back of his head was starting to whisper that he had made a catastrophic error. His ego shouted louder. She resisted. She didn't listen. She brought this on herself. Grand theft. Brenda looked at the car, then at the license plate. The license plate says, ER Doc 1. Are you blind? Let her go. I said back up. Miller took a step toward Brenda, leaving Elena pinned against the car. This is an active crime scene. Interfere again and I will arrest you for obstruction. Elena used the moment of distraction to straighten herself up. Her shoulder was throbbing with a dull, sickening heat. She turned to look at Miller. Her eyes were dry. She had seen too much trauma in her life to cry over a bully with a badge. Instead, her gaze was filled with a terrifying, calm promise of retribution. "Officer," Elena said, her voice low and steady. "Look at the woman recording you. Look at the people gathering." Indeed, a small crowd of doctors, orderlies, and arriving patients had formed a semicircle. "You have exactly 10 seconds to uncuff me and apologize. If you put me in that patrol car, I promise you, you will never wear a uniform again." Miller turned back to her. He saw the crowd. He saw the phones. He felt the weight of the situation, but he interpreted it as a challenge to his authority. If he let her go now, he would look weak. He would look like he made a mistake. "You don't tell me what to do," Miller snarled. He grabbed her by the bicep, his fingers digging into her flesh. "You're going downtown. We'll see how tough you are in a holding cell." "This is insane," a male doctor shouted from the crowd. "Officer, look at her badge. Just look at it." Miller ignored them all. He marched Elena toward his cruiser. She didn't struggle. She walked with her head high despite the humiliating position of her arms. She walked with the dignity of a woman who knew she was right and who knew that the man dragging her was destroying his own life with every step he took. He opened the back door of the patrol unit. The interior smelled of industrial cleaner and old sweat. "Watch your head," he said, mockingly, pushing her down into the hard plastic seat. Elena sat awkwardly, her hands behind her back forcing her to lean forward. The door slammed shut, sealing her in. The muffled sound of the crowd outside faded. She looked through the plexiglass divider. She saw Miller walking back to her BMW. He picked up her white coat from the ground, now stained with oil and dirt, and tossed it carelessly onto the hood. He kicked her keys under the car. He got into the driver's seat, slamming his door. He was breathing heavy, his face red. He picked up his radio microphone. "Dispatch 1 female in custody. En route to central booking. Start me a tow truck for the vehicle. Suspect vehicle is a silver BMW. Copy that. 1 Adam 12. Charges." Miller glanced in the rearview mirror. He met Elena's eyes. She was staring right at him, unblinking. "Disorderly conduct, failure to ID. Resisting arrest," Miller said. He hesitated for a split second, then added, "Assault on an officer." Elena's eyebrows raised slightly. "Assault." He was padding the charges. He was lying on the radio. Good, she thought. Let him dig the hole deeper. She leaned her head against the window as the cruiser lurched forward, lights flashing. She watched St. Jude's Medical Center recede in the distance, the place where she had saved thousands of lives, now the scene of her public degradation. She closed her eyes and began to draft the lawsuit in her head. Paragraph 1. The deprivation of liberty without probable cause. Paragraph 2. Excessive force. Paragraph 3. Malicious prosecution. She wasn't just a doctor anymore. She was a plaintiff. And God help Officer Kyle Miller. The ride to the precinct took 20 minutes. Miller drove aggressively, weaving through morning traffic, using his siren intermittently to push cars out of the way. He didn't speak to her. He turned up the radio, blasting a sports talk station likely to drown out his own thoughts. Elena sat in silence. The pain in her shoulder had settled into a sharp, grinding ache. Her wrists were raw, but her mind was razor-sharp. She memorized the route. She memorized the time on the dashboard clock. She noted that he did not seatbelt her in a violation of department policy for prisoner transport. Every bump in the road sent a jolt through her unsecured body. They arrived at the central precinct at 8:15 a.m. Miller drove into the sally port, the heavy garage door rumbling shut behind them, cutting off the sunlight. The stark fluorescent lights of the intake bay buzzed overhead. Miller got out and opened her door. "Let's go. Out." He grabbed her arm again to pull her out. "I can walk," Elena said coldly. "Do not touch me." Miller sneered but let go, allowing her to step out on her own. He escorted her to the booking desk. The station was busy. Officers were drinking coffee, typing reports, chatting about the weekend. The smell of stale donuts and floor wax hung in the air. Behind the high booking desk sat Sergeant Thomas Kowalski. He was 55, with gray hair cut high and tight, and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. He was a good cop, a lifer who counted the days until retirement. He was reading a file when Miller walked in with his prisoner. "What you got, Miller?" Kowalski asked without looking up. "Drug bust?" "Nah," Miller said, puffing out his chest. "Caught a car thief at the hospital. High-end BMW. Got belligerent when I stopped her." Kowalski looked up. He saw the small, well-dressed black woman in scrubs. He saw the expensive glasses. He saw the posture. And then he looked closer. Kowalski's eyes went wide. His face drained of color. He stood up slowly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Miller," Kowalski said, his voice trembling slightly. "What did you say you arrested her for? Disorderly, resisting, she wouldn't show ID, claimed she was a doctor." Miller laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Can you believe that?" Kowalski didn't laugh. He walked around the desk, moving faster than he had in years. He walked right up to the barrier separating the officers from the prisoners. He looked at Elena. "Dr. Harper?" Kowalski asked softly. Elena looked at him. She recognized him. 2 years ago, he had come into her ER with a shard of glass in his neck from a domestic dispute call gone wrong. She had stitched him up. She had kept him calm while he bled. She had saved his voice box. "Hello, Sergeant Kowalski," Elena said. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of the entire universe. "It's good to see your scar healed well." Kowalski turned slowly to look at Miller. The look on his face wasn't anger. It was horror. It was the look of a man watching a train derail in slow motion. "Miller," Kowalski whispered, "do you know who this is? She said she's a doctor, but she's the director of the emergency room at St. Jude's." Kowalski roared the sound, echoing through the booking bay. Every head in the room turned. "She saved my life. She operates on the chief's wife. She's the most respected surgeon in the city." Miller froze. The blood drained from his face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at Elena, then at the sergeant. She didn't show ID. She's wearing a hospital badge," Kowalski screamed, pointing at the lanyard still hanging around Elena's neck. "Are you blind? Are you stupid? Or are you just trying to get us all fired?" I thought it was fake," Miller stammered. "Uncuff her," Kowalski ordered. "Now." Miller fumbled for his keys. His hands were shaking so badly he dropped them. They clattered on the concrete floor. "Leave them," Elena said. Her voice cut through the noise like a scalpel. Miller looked up. "Do not touch me again," Elena said. "Sergeant Kowalski, I want the watch commander. I want the captain. And I want my lawyer. Do not remove these handcuffs until a superior officer is present to witness it. I want the body camera footage secured immediately." "Dr. Harper, please," Kowalski said, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. "We can fix this. Let me get those off you. This idiot made a mistake." "No, Sergeant," Elena said. "This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to signal. This was a violation of my civil rights. This was assault. This was kidnapping, and I am going to make sure that everyone sees exactly what happened." She turned her back to the counter, presenting her handcuffed wrists to the room. "Call the captain. Tell him the ER director is in chains in his booking room. I'll wait." The atmosphere inside the precinct shifted instantly from routine boredom to high-stakes panic. It was as if a bomb had been discovered in the lobby. Officers who were previously joking around were now scrambling, pulling files, checking cameras, and avoiding eye contact with the woman standing in the center of the room. Captain Robert Vance burst through the double doors of his office 3 minutes later. He was a tall man, balding with a reputation for being a politician in a uniform. He was tucking his shirt in, clearly having been jolted from a nap or a relaxed morning coffee. He saw the scene, Sergeant Kowalski standing pale-faced by the desk, Officer Miller looking like he was about to vomit in the corner, and Dr. Elena Harper, a woman Vance had sat next to at charity galas, standing calmly in handcuffs. "Good God," Vance muttered. He rushed over. "Dr. Harper, Elena, I am so sorry." He reached for his own handcuff key. "Let me get those off you right now." "Captain Vance," Elena said, not turning around. "Before you remove these, I need you to confirm that the body camera footage from Officer Miller has been uploaded and locked. I want a chain of custody established right now." "It's being done, Elena. I promise. Just let me—" "And the dash cam," she added. "And the booking room audio. Yes, everything, please." Vance unlocked the cuffs. The metal clicked open, and Elena brought her arms forward. She winced, rolling her shoulders. Deep red indentations circled her wrists. Her skin was chafed and bruised. She rubbed her wrists slowly, looking directly at the captain. "I want to file a formal complaint," she said. "We will handle this internally, Elena. You know we will. He's new. He's aggressive. We'll deal with him." "No," she shook her head. "I want to file a criminal complaint. Assault. False imprisonment. And I am filing a federal civil rights lawsuit against this department and Officer Miller personally." And Vance sighed, running a hand over his face. "Elena, can we go to my office? Can we sit down, get you some water? There's no need to make this a federal case right this second." "There is every need, Bob." She used his first name, stripping away his rank. "Because if I was a 19-year-old black kid in a hoodie instead of the director of trauma, I'd be in a cell right now. Miller wouldn't be shaking. He'd be high-fiving his buddies. The only reason you are apologizing is because I have power, and that is exactly why I have to use it." She turned her gaze to the corner where Miller was standing. He was leaning against the wall, staring at the floor. He looked young, foolish, and small. "Officer Miller," Elena called out. He looked up, his eyes fearful. "Did you find the stolen car?" she asked. He didn't answer. "Did you find the weapon you claimed I had? Did you find the belligerents?" I was following protocol," Miller mumbled, falling back on the only defense he knew. "There is no protocol that allows for racism," Elena said. "You saw a black woman in a nice car and you decided she didn't belong. You decided I was a criminal because of my skin. And you were so sure of it you ignored the badge, the sign, the witnesses, and the law." She turned back to Vance. "I want my property returned. I want a ride back to my car driven by a different officer. And I want the contact information for the city attorney. I won't be giving a statement to your investigators today. My lawyer will be in touch." Vance nodded, defeated. "Kowalski, drive Dr. Harper back to the hospital. Take the unmarked car." "Yes, sir." "And Miller," Vance's voice dropped to a growl. "Badge and gun. On my desk. Now. You're on administrative leave, effective immediately." As Miller fumbled to unclip his holster, Elena watched. There was no satisfaction in it, only a deep, weary sadness. She had spent her life saving people regardless of who they were. She had operated on gang members, cops, senators, and homeless addicts. She treated them all with the same care, and yet, in the eyes of the law on a Tuesday morning in her own parking lot, she was nothing more than a suspect. She gathered her belongings, her wallet, her phone, her watch. She checked her phone. 20 missed calls from the hospital. The ER was likely in chaos without her. "Let's go, Sergeant," Elena said. She didn't look back at Miller. She walked out of the station, the morning sun blindingly bright, stepping back into a world that had tried to break her but failed. By the time Elena returned to St. Jude's, the rumor mill had already spun out of control. But rumors were nothing compared to the digital wildfire that was about to ignite. The video recorded by Brenda the charge nurse hit the internet at 10:00 a.m. Brenda hadn't waited. She was furious. She had posted it to Facebook and Twitter with the caption, "San Diego police assault our medical director for driving while black in her own parking spot." Within 2 hours, the video had 50,000 views. By the time the evening news aired, it was in the millions. The footage was damning. It showed a calm, professional woman in scrubs being manhandled by an aggressive shouting officer. It showed the witnesses screaming that she was a doctor. It showed Miller's arrogance, his refusal to listen, the brutal way he slammed a 58-year-old surgeon onto the hood of a car. The public reaction was visceral. Comments poured in from around the globe. Doctors posted photos of their own hospital badges in solidarity. The hashtag Dr. Harper began trending #1 in the United States. At the hospital, the board of directors called an emergency meeting. Usually, corporations try to distance themselves from controversy. Not this time. Dr. Harper was their star. She brought in millions in grants. She was the face of the institution. The hospital CEO released a statement at 2:00 p.m. "We are outraged by the treatment of Dr. Elena Harper. An attack on our staff is an attack on the health of this community. We stand fully behind Dr. Harper and demand immediate accountability from the police department." Back at the precinct, the walls were closing in on Captain Vance. The phone lines were jammed. The mayor was on line 1, the chief of police was on line 2, and the press was camped out on the front steps. Internal Affairs was activated. They didn't just look at this incident, they pulled Miller's entire jacket. What they found was a disturbing yet predictable pattern. In his 4 months in the district, Miller had made 42 traffic stops. 38 of them were black or Hispanic drivers. He had a habit of patrolling the affluent Hillside neighborhood, stopping minority drivers for failure to signal or tinted windows. And in 3 cases, he had detained professionals, an architect, a lawyer, and a software engineer, but had released them with warnings after running their names. He was fishing. He was hunting. He was looking for the big bust that would make him a hero, and he was using racial profiling as his primary tool. Dr. Harper didn't go back to work that day. She went home. She sat in her living room, her arm in a sling. Her rotator cuff was sprained, an injury that would keep her out of the operating room for at least 6 weeks. That was the tragedy no one spoke about yet. For 6 weeks, the best trauma surgeon in the city wouldn't be able to save lives because a cop wanted to feel powerful. She watched the news. She saw the video of herself. It was strange watching her own humiliation broadcast to the world. She saw the moment she was shoved. She saw the fear in her own eyes masked by resolve. Her lawyer, a shark named Marcus Thorne, who specialized in civil rights litigation, sat across from her. "They're going to offer a settlement fast," Thorne said. "They want this to go away. The video is indefensible. The captain's apology is on record. They have no cards to play." "I don't want it to go away," Elena said, sipping tea with her good hand. "I want it to matter. It will matter. We'll ask for a number that hurts, and we'll ask for policy changes." "I want his job," Elena said. "I want to make sure he never carries a gun again, and I want an independent review of every stop he's made. If he did this to me, imagine what he did to the people who couldn't fight back." Thorne nodded, writing it down. "Scorched earth. I like it." The lawsuit, Harper versus the City of San Diego et al., was filed 3 days later. It was a masterpiece of legal drafting. It didn't just claim negligence. It claimed a systemic failure to supervise. It alleged that the department knew Miller was a liability and did nothing. The city attorney took one look at the complaint, then watched the body camera footage, which had now been released to the public due to a Freedom of Information Act request, and nearly fainted. The body cam audio was worse than the bystander video. You could hear Miller muttering to himself before the stop. "Look at this. Flashy wheels. Probably a dealer's girlfriend." That single sentence, muttered under his breath but captured by the microphone, was the nail in the coffin. It proved racial bias beyond a shadow of a doubt. It destroyed any defense of good faith error. The media storm was relentless. Good Morning America wanted an interview. CNN had a roundtable discussing the criminalization of black success. Dr. Harper declined them all. She let her lawyer do the talking. She stayed private, focusing on her physical therapy. Every day she couldn't operate was a torment. She heard about cases at the hospital, a multi-car pileup, a construction accident where her hands were needed. Her colleagues covered for her, but the department felt her absence. 6 weeks passed. The internal investigation concluded. The findings were leaked to the press before they were even on the chief's desk. Officer Kyle Miller violated department policy, 402 detainment policy, 301. Use of force and policy, 804, professional conduct. The investigation sustains the allegation of bias-based policing. The report recommended termination. But in a unionized environment, termination is rarely simple. Miller's union rep went on TV claiming Miller was a young officer who made a split-second decision in a high-stress environment, and that he was being scapegoated by the woke mob. That statement backfired. The high-stress environment was a quiet parking lot at 7:00 a.m. involving a 58-year-old woman in scrubs. The public didn't buy it. Protests began outside the precinct. Chants of "Fire Miller" and "Justice for Dr. Harper" rang out every night. The mayor had enough. He called the city attorney. "Cut the check," he said, "and get rid of him. I don't care what the union says. If he stays, the city burns." Negotiations began. The city offered $500,000. Thorne laughed and walked out of the room. They came back with $800,000. Thorne said, "Add a zero or we go to trial and put Miller on the stand on live TV." They didn't want Miller on the stand. They didn't want the jury to hear him explain why he thought a black doctor was a drug dealer's girlfriend. The settlement was finalized 4 months after the incident. The city of San Diego agreed to pay Dr. Elena Harper $1.2 million in damages. But the money was the footnote. The real victory was in the consent decree attached to the settlement. The department agreed to implement a new interaction protocol for hospital zones. They agreed to mandatory quarterly implicit bias training with a failing grade resulting in suspension. And Officer Kyle Miller. He was terminated for cause. The termination for cause label is the scarlet letter of law enforcement. It gets reported to the state database. It meant he couldn't just move 2 towns over and get hired by the sheriff's department. His career in law enforcement was over at 29. Miller tried to appeal. The arbitration board watched the video for 5 minutes and upheld the firing. The last anyone heard, he was working for a landscaping company in Arizona, still complaining on internet forums about how he was the victim. Dr. Harper returned to work 12 weeks after the arrest. Her shoulder had healed, though it ached when it rained. Her first day back, the entire ER staff lined the hallway. There was no applause. Trauma teams aren't big on fanfare, but there were nods of respect, handshakes, a few tears from the nurses who had felt helpless that day. She scrubbed in for her first surgery at 10:00 a.m. A gunshot victim. A young man, 19 years old. As she stood over the operating table, scalpel in hand, the bright surgical lights washing over her, she felt a profound sense of purpose. This was where she belonged. Not in a courtroom, not in a viral video, but here saving lives. But she didn't keep the money. 2 weeks later, Elena announced the formation of the Harper Legal Defense Fund for healthcare professionals. She endowed it with the entire $1.2 million settlement. The fund was designed to provide immediate legal representation for nurses, doctors, and medical staff who faced discrimination or harassment from law enforcement. The story ends not with a gavel, but with a quiet moment. 6 months later, Elena walked out to her car after another long shift. It was morning again. The sun was hitting the pavement in the exact same way. She stopped at the edge of the lot. She looked at her parking spot. The sign had been changed. It no longer just said, "Reserved." The hospital had added a small plaque underneath in honor of Dr. Elena Harper, a pillar of our community. She looked at the spot where she had been thrown against the hood. The oil stain was gone. The ghosts of that day were fading. She unlocked her car. This time, no cruiser pulled up. No siren wailed. She got in, started the engine, and drove home. This story isn't just about a bad cop. It's about the fragility of dignity. It's about how 30 years of excellence can be erased in 30 seconds by someone's prejudice. Dr. Harper won, yes, but she shouldn't have had to fight. She had the money, the status, and the video evidence to get justice. But what about the people who don't? What about the people who get stopped in the dark with no cameras and no medical board to back them up? That's the question that should keep us all up at night. Justice was served for Elena Harper. But true justice will be the day when a black woman can walk to her own car without fearing that her success looks like a crime. Thank you for reading this story. It's a heavy one, but an important one. If this story moved you, or if you think we need more accountability in our systems, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel. And I want to ask you, do you think the punishment for Officer Miller was enough? Or should he have faced criminal charges for assault? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay safe. Look out for each other, and I'll see you in the next video.